Okay.
Guardians of Wisdom.
I can barely hear you.
Welcome to
Now I
Guardians of
can.
Wisdom. I'm Viyahta, and I've got Chief Amun here with me. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this February 25th. Can you believe this month is almost gone? No, wait, March. We're in March.
Yeah, March.
March 25th. February went poof. Now we're almost at the end of March. So, and we have summer weather in the day in Florida and cool 60 last night. I actually kept my windows open. So, welcome everyone, the Guardians of Wisdom. Chief Moon, how are you?
I'm well. How about yourself? I mean, it's a good weather outside, but it's tricky. It's that warm weather with that little cool breeze, that get everybody every time as far as, you easily get the flu or some kind of sickness or whatever. But
I can't wait to go to the beach though, but the water's a little
yeah.
cold right now. So I'm hanging in here. Got my flip flops at the door.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when we came up with tonight's topic, physics, anatomy, and more, I thought about in my early training and teaching, I learned that we are star seeds of light, and that we come into our mother's womb as a star seed of light, and we begin this earth journey. So I'm really excited to talk about why do we need to know about physics, anatomy, astronomy, and all those things, because partly I think because that's who we are. So Chief, this is part of your book, though. You want to tell people a little bit about your book and how this fits into your book that you wrote.
Which one are you referring to?
The one that you sent me.
Oh, that's not my book actually.
Oh,
That Yeah, I didn't write that book. That book was written by tribal elders from Botswana, Africa, of the Bakatla people.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
that's even better because you've
yeah.
obviously read it
Oh yeah, yeah,
and studied it,
yeah.
right?
Yep. I,
Uh,
yeah, I actually, to be honest, I didn't really read it that many times, but it was so interesting. Things that we interested in it tends to stick to our minds. So, um, but the topics that you chose, we was trying to look at, was physics and astronomy, and it's the way that they look at physics. And in the indigenous way is totally different than the way modern science are viewing physics. And the way that they go about it in a modern way, they would never fully grasp what they call physics or the study of subatomic particles. And astronomy is the study of celestial bodies and the characteristics of, and or the laws and principles of celestial bodies and laws and principles of subatomic particles when you're talking about physics. That's how it's defined with in an indigenous sense. But if you approach these subatomic particles in the way that they're doing it in modern terms, you would never fully understand what's going on, because really everything moves in a circle. Everything is a cycle, and the ancients, which are us, we are the ancient ones. The way we had things structured, we observe the principle of as above, so below. So below is above, or all things are reflections of each other, or the law of correspondence. When that meant that if all things are reflections of each other, I can just take one thing and understand its reflection in all things. You see that? And so that's what we did as children. They gave us the blueprint of one thing in nature, which was on a, if you want to call it a microcosm level. And once we had a full grasp of the microcosm, then we can understand the macrocosm. You see that? Because an atom is a microscopic solar system. Now they try to say, oh, it's not because it's different principles and it's different laws is going. They try to say it's different laws because of the energy measurements and things like that. But the problem is the methodologies that they're using and the instrumentations that they're using, which is cater made and calibrated to only measure energy at a certain caliber. You see, and anything that goes outside of that limitation or underneath that, underneath or above that limitation, they say, oh, it's different, and it's not. It's not different. So, but that's some of the things, and they leave out spirit. They don't include spirit or God or the Most High in the sciences, and that means that they will always be stagnant. You know, extraterrestrials, they take it a little bit further, and also when you're talking about the top secret government, they tend to take it further. The physics or astrophysics, it bleeds over into the realm of soul and spirit and things like that. But formulas that they work with on that level are not taught in school at all. So
well, that's why I'm celebrating the closing of the Department of Federal Education, because these are the things that they're not going to be taught as long as the federal government is standing over the states, telling them what they can and can't do. If you don't get the money, you don't get the money unless you do what we say. I'm celebrating their leaving, just like we did on Sunday with Africa. We celebrated the USAID leaving Africa because the woman who spoke said we don't need them to send in more vaccines and more AIDS drugs and more GMO seeds. So with this analysis that you just gave, we're looking at, what I see as sacred geometry in everything. You just mentioned how everything swirls. The world is full of swirling. Even as I've studied the chakras over the years, I never saw them as sacred geometry as much as I do now. And when I do, okay, let's talk about physics. I don't know if people understand. Let's just compare what you might learn in physics in a university of whatever city or state versus in the Chief Amun School of Spiritual Understanding. What would be the difference in the physics class, what people learn in high school or whatever, versus what we really needed to learn in the spiritual school of knowledge?
Well, you know how we define physics is it's the knowledge of laws and principles of electrons and atoms and or subatomic particles. But they study physics as the interactions and characteristics of subatomic particles. But the thing about it is, it's um, it's not connected with the inner workings or the outer workings. You see that? Their understanding of how the solar system works and the earth and as it moves around the sun, what causes it to spin, which is using the friction of light from the sun to spin around as the sunlight shines on the earth, and the energy between the earth and the actually the energy between the earth and the sun, it causes attraction, and it spins on that light and it causes it to move. There's a whole chapter actually dedicated to that, the appearance of light. But the way that it's approached amongst the indigenous people is in a spiritual sense. If we say that the atom, which is, they say is composed of protons and neutrons, and then electrons spinning around it. If they say that there's two particles inside of an atom, well, they have never seen that before. You show me anywhere in science where they have actually seen a neutron and a proton at the center of an atom. Never have they seen that. They have the closest microscopic pictures that you can find, which I like. It's like an array. It's a grid. You see that? It's just a grid, a perfect grid, which shows that these atoms are magnetically put together in a matrix, just like when you talked about the star systems. They also are gridded, but they're not seen that way because they're so big and we're so small. You see that? Um, but these atoms, according to the teachings of the ancient ones, our ancestors could actually take their essence out of their bodies and shrink down to a microscopic level and go down on one of those electrons or earths and spend time there. And they said if you go there, it'll be just like your own earth. You couldn't tell the difference. You see that? And of course, the atom, the electrons are spinning around the atom are spinning at a very high rate per second. But if you go down to that level, everything is relative. You got to remember that. It seemed like you're just moving comparison to, let's say, 365 days a year that it takes the Earth to move around the sun. You see that? And of course, if you're down there, let's say for a trillion years or what have you, up here, nothing but a few months have passed by. You see that? Because things are moving much slower. You see, but as a matter of fact, according to the ancients, after a person has reached the level of 7,000 years old, they go through a ritual in which they have to go through an initiation where they go down to what some people call the underworld or the microscopic universe. You see that? So I don't want to go too much into it, but because it's a lot of explaining, and I don't want to lose the audience. But you would leave, let's say, this level or this world that we're on, this physical world, is level one. Okay, then you got level two, which is the microscopic solar system, or what you would call a tier one solar system. Then, if you go down on that level two on an electron, that electron is actually a planet. You see that? And so, what are electrons made of? Electrons are made up of microscopic atoms. You see that? So you would take your essence from level 2 and go down inside of the electron of level 2 to get to level 3. You see that? And that's where we start our initiation experience at when we are 7,000 years old. So at level 3, which is really called level 2, and it's the third universe. You see that? It's a physical. It's not talking about spiritual. It's the third level universe, but it's considered to be level 2 as far as the worlds counted for our initiations and experiences. You see, and so for many, many years, billions and billions of years, our ancestors have been doing that, going to levels and levels, and that's why I was said the amount of levels is it's no number on the planet that can actually count that. They don't have a number for it. So, uh, but this is the first because they always thinking about this endlessness, and they take it out of pocket because they haven't accepted the fact that the Most High always manifests as the indigenous people, or what you call as black people, or the melanin people, or whatever you want to call it. Uh, uh, and the reason that the Most High manifests as that because out of black everything comes from that. You see that? It's the creative germ gene that makes a person black, and God can only incarnate, male or female, can incarnate into a body that has that germ gene. If that body does not have that germ gene, then that person is impotent, and hence God cannot be impotent. You see that? God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omni everything. You see that? So God to manifest his and her power in the physical has to manifest in, if you want to call it a body of a black person, Negro person, whatever you want to call it. But that's a science. It's not racism. That's not hopefulness. It's not wishfulness. It's nothing like that. It's science. And that book that I sent you actually goes deep into that.
Well, you've got okay, you've got what I hear you saying is we're more energy than atoms. We're looking at energy versus what science and men call atoms and thinking they can find something under a microscope. It's like even with the coronavirus, they haven't been able to isolate a virus. I don't know how many people realize that. They threw
Mm-hmm.
out this idea or this falsehood that there was a virus that was going to kill people if we didn't get a jab, right? And then we
Mm-hmm.
found out over the last 2, 3, 4 years that they haven't isolated any virus. They just put that out there to put fear in people's minds. So when you're talking about levels of manifestation, what I'm seeing is like third dimension, fourth dimension, and all kinds of dimensions that have existed forever. And yet the scientists, the elite scientists are so-called, are trying to tell us that there is something going on that's not going on, like viruses. There's no such thing. That the virus is actually something totally different from what we've been told. But what you're saying is what I think I hear you saying, that there are so many dimensions and levels that our ancestors dwelt in, even existed in, changed, moved around in, that now we're kind of remembering that we have this power that our ancestors have always had, and now it's in us. But here's the other thing I'm thinking about. You know what in the United States, what we have typically seen as Native Americans is not dreadlock, nappy hair, dark skinned people. They've been straight hair, reservation on the reservation with darker skin, but not dark, charcoal dark. So we have had a mixture of bloodlines or genes come in. And is the spirit of the Most High still in these bodies that have been mixed with Mongolian? Because the straight hair tells us that there's a mixture that came in, and yet we have Africans with no straight hair that you might say what are more pure blooded, but we still have people who are in America who have a strong spirit presence in them. So how do we look at all these people now who are of such different blood and cultures mixed in?
Well, it's simple. I mean, you can have variations of blood, but the germ gene is only in about 6 generations of black people, range from 100% black to all the way to a mulatto, which that's when you run into the 6th generation black. And then once you go over and strain out the by diluting yourself, mixing with non-black races or people who doesn't have the germ gene, then that cuts that person ancestral lineage off, because God can only incarnate in the body that has the Ark of Covenant in it, or the germ gene, or what you want to call the black germ gene. It can only incarnate in that. If you were to take Fard Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, you see he was a mulatto, 6th generation black, who went under extensive rituals and initiations, and to learn certain information, because he had to educate the people this way. But he had a clear channel of who and what he was. And his father, who was a straight black man, mixed his seed with a white woman so that they could give birth to a child that looks white but be black. You see that? In other words, that looks white but still carry the germ gene inside. So he had a divine incarnation in him to disseminate a certain amount of information. That means that he was plugged in and he had that what you would call a cable or a divine connection, so that he could speak and tell the truth about our people and about the ancient cities and life forms and things like that in the solar system, in which back then they didn't even know any of those things. Of course, they're not going to give credit to it. That was never a time where certain African tribes were without knowing biology, physics, astronomy, and all this other stuff. Um, we always knew how to tell time. Always. It was never a time. So when they say that, in electrical science, they talk about volts, they talk about currencies, current, which it was a man whose last name was Ampere. And so when they talk about current in units, they say amps. And they named those units after him, because they said this European guy actually discovered that. No, it was discovered for them, but it wasn't discovered for us as far as our ancestral lineage. So history, as they call it, his story is about them and their discoveries. When they say Christopher Columbus discovered America, for them, not for us. We always knew where everything was on the planet, and we was all over the planet, not in one specific place. We was in Africa, we was in China, and we moved to southern China because we're getting away from them, and we was in India 6,000 years ago, and even we still there. It's all over the planet. We was there. 50,000 years ago, according to the elders, some of us had our hair. And I want to talk about our biology was different then. We had, like I said, we were supernatural. We were standing 7 feet, 7.5 feet tall on average. That means some brothers was 9 or 10 feet tall, sometimes 12, and going all the way down. Speaking about the sisters, it was seven feet tall on average, but with jet black skin, no brown in the skin, and we could actually change our heights in seconds. We could actually change our hair texture, ranging from an afro-like texture all the way to straight hair, because hair is an antenna. So depending on what we're doing, what kind of energy we're working with, we would alter our hair accordingly. You see that? Well, when that time took place, some of us was on certain parts of the planet, namely over what you call America, that a lot of people had their hair in straight form. Now, once we stopped doing our rituals and spiritual systems, or namely the 7 great black rituals, we lost the ability to alter our hair, like our supernatural abilities and stuff, and the power to control our genetics and biology with our minds. You see that? So some of us, You will find a lot of black people in India, big noses, lips, and everything, with pitch black skin but with straight hair. Those people are our brothers and sisters too. They are family. You see that? Um, so uh, when we start talking about the creation of non-blacks, which I think I mentioned before, I don't know if I got to that point, but a lot of these Ivy League school professors, they were studying genomes and new methodologies that they have implemented to discover the history of different genes and tracing them back through history. And what they found was extraordinary. They found that the Europeans and different non-black race people only go back, well, they say 7,000 years. After that, it's no trace of the gene whatsoever. Uh, they found that black people, on the other hand, I mean, their genetics is timeless. I mean, you talk about billions of years according to the sciences that they have. Now, what they seen is that this non-black race gene, whether you want to call it European or whatever, it abruptly came about around that 7,000 year period. It doesn't work like that. In their science, they say things evolve, right? But this just boop, it just came out of nowhere. Which they said that it had to be in a scientific experiment, and that's why they were looking at they called it a theory of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad about Yakub or black scientists that actually did genetic experiments or gene selecting, and actually made all non-black race people on the planet. And there's even in some indigenous among certain indigenous tribes, they actually have scientific names for each one of the non-black race people. But they've been mixing for the past 7,000 years, mixing with each other, mixing with black people, and that's a lot of that mixing has happened over here in the West. But if you are first generation black all the way up to sixth generation black, or from mulatto to pure black and mulatto, if that germ gene is present, then God is also present. You see that? And so it's up to the person to make that connection. You see, um, another thing I want to say is that when we're talking about science, we're talking about physics, we're talking about astronomy, we're talking about biology. Since all things are reflections of each other, that means that all things have a relationship with each other. If we move through life, uh, going and moving through life and living according to a science, a so-called science that does not acknowledge God or our connection with all things, that means that the science that is being taught is a synthetic science. It's not real. It is actually, it has to be poisonous, because now we are doing things in laboratories like making GMO foods, mixing, animal genes with fruit genes, and strawberries with insect genes, and fish genes with food genes, and all this other stuff. And we walk around with a blindfold on because we don't know the relationship with no, they don't know the relationship with plants and animals and people, and subatomic particles, or whatever they want to call it. Then we're actually they are actually poisoning the environment. It's not us. So that's what I like what the elders were saying, that the word that they have for Adam, or when they speak about planets, it's the same word for the bigger planets at the same time. So, in other words, if they say we are in a solar system, they also refer to atoms as a solar system, the same thing, using the same laws and principles. You see that? And that's the truth about physics and astronomy.
So I love what you're saying about the difference between science and the gene. And it reminds me of the sick care system is without this gene, because what they're doing to people who are diagnosed with, say, cancer, they're offering them a poison of chemo or radiation versus nature. And so many women today, I'm on a couple of Facebook groups that are women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer because of my book and my history of having that experience. I'm trying to encourage these women to make wise decisions. But what you're saying is this system that people are in with their insurance is not of the God gene. It's not of love. It's not of nature. And yet, their people are so convinced that that's what will help them overcome their dis-ease, their imbalance in their body that was created by their thoughts and their minds mostly, and their emotions. So today we have this opportunity to bring the knowledge that people don't have and that's causing them to perish in that system. Because if you go full speed ahead into the sick care system with their drugs and their science and their lack of connection to the nature gene, then that is the end of that will be death, or will be an escape from your this vessel. The spirit will have to leave this vessel because it's so anti Christ, if you want to call it, anti love, anti wisdom, anti truth. So I see what you're saying in relation to people having the knowledge that keeps them from perishing. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And this is the knowledge we want people to grasp if they're faced with health challenges, whatever, is that if you have that consciousness, I'm looking at this gene you're talking about as being consciousness, that if you have this consciousness to know that the creator is in us, if you are in the spirit of truth and love and wisdom, then you're not going to choose that system. But so many people are confused today about what is that, where is that gene, what does it look like? Maybe you could elaborate on that, the gene, the creator gene. What does it look like in people so they can recognize when you go to your doctor's office and he says you have cancer and we have the solution. We're going to burn the hell out of you with radiation. We're going to put drug poison in you with chemo, and we're going to cut that thing out because you don't need it anymore. Can
Oh
people
boy.
can people recognize this spirit that is telling them to do all this? That's what we want to help people see and
Well,
understand.
when we talking about cancer, is they starting to see a connection between what you refer to sugar, the eating of sugar, which is not necessarily saying that you're eating a lot of table sugar, but a lot of these carbohydrates. You see that?
Glucose.
We
Well, they
didn't.
found cancer survives on glucose in all
Yeah,
its forms.
right. It survives on glucose. So that means if I'm taking in bread, if I'm taking in pasta, if I'm taking in sugar, if I'm taking in honey, misusing it, if I'm taking in all these juices to get from the grocery store, no matter if they're organic or not, cane sugars and all this stuff and bread, it just all this stuff, all these carbohydrates. If we just cut all that out and just stick with just green vegetables
Yep.
and baked or boiled meats, namely white meats, um, they try to say, well, it's a connection between red meat and um, some say cancer and hypertension, heart attacks, high blood pressure. It's because of the chemicals that they putting in the beef. Though the beef is real rough on our bodies, you see that. But if the glucose, they're taking in so much glucose in the sugar, it destroys the receptors around the cells for the mitochondria DNA to generate the energy for a person to move about. So the body runs better off the ancient diet and the diet nowadays that they have in enlightened societies, which is they running off what they call ketones or fats, units of fats. The body runs better off fat. And even if the body is healthy, it actually produces its own sugar. You see that? It produces its own glucose. The brain is made up of cholesterol. It also generates, the body generates for the brain to utilize the glucose. So they switched it. So if you're putting all the sugar in your body, your cells begin to they begin to not deform, but they change. They start to transform into something that's running off of, let's say, glucose, and the receptor cells are also destroyed. So a person becomes insulin resistant. And not only that, they become hormonal resistant. So now your body stop reacting to the hormones. So it's like and so the body just it's this modern diet that got everybody messed up.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
far as the black, as far as the black germ gene, it's an actual gene that our ancestors recognized, as well as the scientists in enlightened societies today. It's an actual gene. They're not going to go in detail about it because, of course, they put it in a book. Then these people will get it, and then they go exploring on the bodies of people, of black folks or people of color. They're exploring these bodies, but they said that the gene is actually located in the reproductive system of the male and female. You see that? And it's actually what makes a person black, your essence, you see, and not necessarily your skin color, but it's that gene. And
Yes. Yes. So,
yeah,
so
that's
what are some of the qualities in people that have that gene who don't look like the typical, say, African? How would you help people recognize that gene when they're meeting someone for the first time? Maybe even trying to looking for a husband or wife or something. What are some of the qualities you would tell them to look for in that person to recognize that hidden gene that's not on their face or outright, so to help
well, that
not make
gene.
so many mistakes.
Well, it sounds unfair to say this, but according to the teachings of the elders, all black people have that gene, and everybody that has that gene is black, and it's seen through their genetics. If you come across a person that looks sometimes people can look Caucasian, but they have the gene, you see that, because of the mixing and so forth and so on.
Right, right.
This
So
takes it. So if I come across anybody black has the gene, but it doesn't mean because they have that gene that their characteristics are, outstanding and positive and so forth and so on, because you can have that gene but still be cut off from the divine unity within you. So when we talk about slavery, genocide, colonialism, and all this other stuff, and when you impose like imperialism, or the Chinese like to use, but when you impose your way of life or disrupt the natural system of a people, you cut them off from the divine inside within them. See, they have a system that they are living by, a culture, and this culture nurtures them. It nurtures the connection that they have with the Most High within them. You see that? And you cut that off and then force them out of their culture and force them to take on your ways and to control them and program them. Now they're literally out of their minds and they are mimicking the nature of other people. They're mimicking the nature of other people. So but this is actually a physical gene. They call it in ancient times, what they refer to that as the Ark of Covenant. You see that? Or the throne of God. You see, it is what makes a person black. And that's why uh, people, black people with, the genetics that they have, is wired all into that. That's like the mother chip right there, that
yeah,
germ chip. And even melanin also is plugged into that. You see that?
yeah, but there's something about the character of a person with that gene that should stand out among people who don't have it.
Oh, well, us as a people, we always been a kind people. In our societies, when all societies that we had that were not touched by anybody on the outside, not touched by any non-black race people. I'm talking about before any of these people even stepped foot in Africa. We didn't have, like I said before, we didn't have any jails, we didn't have no prison, we didn't have no rape, we had no stealing, we had no negativity whatsoever. um, that is an example of people who are in tune with themselves with that gene. Once we had people to walk in these societies, then corruption came in, and that's where the issue came about. But you can't approach a person to say, "Oh, whether they had the gene or not." If they are black, they got that gene, the physical genetics. They have that gene, but it doesn't mean that this person is all of a sudden they're divine and godly. You can see it in their characteristics or expressing itself through their soul aspect. They have to clean themselves up, purify themselves, and realign themselves with their divinity, so that the energies that comes through that gene can be seen as an expression of the in their characteristics. You see that?
Yeah,
But to
well,
just go ahead.
you've got communities and families who grew up, let's say in the South, and they were sharecroppers. And
Hmm.
I learned from studying the um, the Tuskegee experiment that a lot of those sharecroppers were homosexuals. Because what happened when I studied it, I found out that people who had the polio or whatever the Tuskegee was studying at the time, syphilis. Okay, I found out that in Alaska, the community that had the highest rate of syphilis was homosexual or gays. Okay, so then I looked at the Tuskegee experiment. You had a lot of sharecroppers, black men, who were raised on plantations where that type of deviant sexual activity was being performed. Okay, so then you had this woman take in these black sharecroppers with this, the Tuskegee, I'm sure, experiment, the history of all that. Took them in and they pretended like they were going to help them
That's my
out, but
family farm.
they didn't even give them the penicillin. They were experimenting to see who was going to die and who wasn't going to die. And it just turned out that the environment that they grew up in on the plantation was so corrupt and evil that they took on those habits, and that's why they developed syphilis. Now, you have similar things going on all over this country, where families have become so corrupted and dysfunctional, and I'm maybe but mainly black families, that there's been all kinds of sexual misbehavior in the family, my fathers and children and all that. So then there does have to be some healing, I think, before you can even recognize who really is carrying a healthy, let's say healthy genetic disposition that we were talking about, and that is able to build a new community, a healthy community. But first, the narcissism, for instance, has to be, and that really can't be healed, unfortunately. But we have to recognize the people who are just so dysfunctional that they might have this gene, but they've been in these environments that are so corrupt and out of balance that there's not any hope for them. So, what do you do then? How do you move forward to have relationships and build communities with the healthy communities?
Well, if you really look at it, us as a people, we have gone through so much. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
so much abuse, so much is, but we still here. So we went
exactly.
from hanging from trees. If
Resilience.
we were, yeah, we went from hanging from trees all the way to the president. You see that, or becoming the president? Not to say that that's we've saved. No, not to say that, but so we went from slaves to being human beings, and the next thing we're going to be is gods and goddesses, back to our original state. Because being men and women only did not work for us. It didn't work for us. We have to. Our original state is gods and goddesses, but not in the Christian sense. The pinnacle of our potential. People all throughout all cultures deem us as gods and goddesses because they marvel at our works. What are our works? Stonehenge, the pyramids, Petra, all these different the seven wonders of the world and other wonders of the world. And the elders explained that whenever you see structures like that, know that black people are responsible for those structures. After so many years, you had different non-black race people to come and start living in these areas, and then people look at them, then they give credit there. But naturally, because of their nature and the lack of the germ gene within them, they tend to lean towards evil, and also what we call an ego. You see that, the true ego, and which is people who cannot submit to their maker, and their maker they were made by Uh, you get all colors out of black. You see that? Black did not come from red. Black did not come from green. Black did not. You see that? So the same thing with genetics. All these different races came out of black. They recognize that. It's scientifically proven according to their methodologies. But what people don't realize is as far as that, black people being all over the different places in the around the planet, and some of these planets, places with cold climate, so their skin turned white and all this different stuff. Oh, that was hogwash thrown out because the new methodologies, tracing genome, going back, they only was here. Their genes only go back to 7,000 years, meaning that it was a controlled thing, meaning that they was actually made. That can also be parallel with the story in the Bible. We talk about Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 27, talking about let us make man after our image and after our likeness. You see that? And according to the teachings of these African elders, that was talking about those black scientists talking about the making of the non-black race people. And it's a philosophy behind it and the reason why they did what they did. But when we're talking about morality and the nature of a people, there was never any evil in any of our societies. These people who were made from what you call this gene selection, they we produce a race of people that did not naturally have the germ gene. It means that they did not naturally have the seat of morality in them, but they were taught morality. So that's why you have a span of those like, I don't want to say like Trump and all them versus, those on the other end of more humanitarian and so forth and so on. But as they say, nonetheless, the ego, indeed, something is there,
Well, I think
So,
we have to look at Obama as an example. Obama was put on a pedestal. Many of us were deceived, bamboozled because he had a dark skin and he said his dad was black, mom was white. But when we know his grandfather was related to George Bush. So who pushed the LGBTQ agenda? President Obama. We didn't have nearly as many transgender whatevers until Obama came in and made everything gay, red, gay flag on the White House. So what I'm saying is we can't put anybody on a pedestal because they have brown skin. Because Obama is a perfect example. He was the one who killed Gaddafi and had Gaddafi assassinated in Africa. The Gaddafi was ready to bring in gold currency for his people. Obama, the one we put up as the man, he's the man, our first black president, turned out to be the
well,
most deceptive person because he had a dark skin. So I'm just saying we have to be so discerning today about who has that gene and who doesn't. That's why I'm asking, okay, how do you recognize? You just have to have a relationship with people and get to know them to know if they're walking in love and wisdom and joy and demonstrating that energy. Because we go back to what we started. Physics is about energy, and that all this astronomy, it's about energy. Recognizing the energy of a person before you start developing any kind of relationship with, and definitely don't put anybody on a pedestal.
it's not really putting anybody on a pedestal. When we're talking about the superiority of black people and their genetics, it's not
Right.
saying, "Oh, we are the best. We are the best." I mean, if you got an airplane that goes 300 miles an hour and one goes 50, that's not saying that we're saying that the one that goes 300 miles an hour, oh, it's better than, like, in a sense, but scientifically speaking, it's more powerful. You see that? The black people have more of a dominant gene by far. So in that sense, scientifically speaking, is what I'm talking about. As far as, so is we're not crossing when we're dealing with morals, and I'm not crossing like well, I put it like this: we want to look at everything scientifically. Then that gets rid of who's playing favoritism and all this, because I don't play that game. But when we're talking about the germ gene, which is the seed of morality, and it has 144,000 characteristics that's plugged into that. When these people disrupted our people, they threw all of that stuff out of whack. They cut us off, so we started to act crazy. We started to act in a synthetic way as they were acting. We started to mimic them. If you do research on these people, the non-black races, in ancient societies, if you want to call them ancient, you will see how all of them had a base way of living, very barbaric. This is research. This is science. This is history. It's nothing. It's things that they talk about. So it's not saying that, oh, we're producing or trying to say, oh, hate, 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 hate. That's not what we're doing. President Obama, he had the germ gene. Was he connected and aligned with his inner being? No, he wasn't. He wasn't aligned with his inner being. So you can have a person to have a germ gene, or let's say a powerful car like a Mercedes Benz sitting in your yard. But if it's not turned on, if if the cables and wires are incorrect inside of it, then you see it has no potency. But as soon as you fix it, it can do wonders. So what I'm talking about is some people that have the germ gene, which are black people, if they align with their divine inside of their divinity, sky's the limit. You see that? It's not to say, well, we're dealing with the non-blacks. Oh, these people, they can they learn a sense of morality? Do we have some that's moral? Yeah, we have moral non-black race people out there, and it just upon the individual how they see fit and how they choose to coincide with these people. But they are not us. They are not us. They have expressed that you know how they paint us as a people, how they paint these African ethnic groups that they call tribes, how they paint these people and show that they teach that they're unintelligent. You see that? And of course, if we're going by their measuring rod, we can say, okay, you're smarter. But if you go by our measuring rod, we'll say that they're dumber than us. You see that? But so psychologically, we're 180 degrees different. Physically, we're 180 degrees different. Spiritually, we're 180 degrees different. And this has been proven. We have certain nerves in our bodies that they don't have. So we're wired different. We think different. We walk different. The rhythm is different. Everything is different. So that means we have to have a different education than they do, namely our culture. And that's what they took us out of. Every time you have black people wanting to exercise their culture, then they get in trouble. It's a problem. You see that? You're talking about COINTELPRO. This is not to say that, oh, we should just go out and hate people. That's not what we do. We don't hate because love is its opposite. We have what you call, if you want to call it divine hate, intelligent hate, meaning that not in the sense of emotions, I hate that person, but in the sense that I understand who I am by understanding what I am not. I know if a snake is crossing the road, slithering across the road, I don't hate snakes. I don't hate them at all. I have no emotional hate towards them, but I'm not going to pick it up because I know what it'll do to me. You see that? I show respect to my people. I come across non-black people, I show respect to them, just like they show respect to me. They go their way, I go my way. It's things how they live, things that they eat that I can't eat. They can eat a lot of starch. I can't eat a lot of starch. I start feeling sick. You see, so this stuff is more so about science instead of putting people on a pedestal. They are the ones that acknowledge melanin. They are the ones that acknowledge the greatness of this and that, and the strength of the genes of black people, and how they want to pull out stem cells from black women and things like that, things what they can do. So this is more so of science.
We have so many people. I lost track of time. Oh my goodness, I can't believe an hour has gone by. Let's look at some of our comments here. I see that Haru, peace to the gods. Thank you, Haru, for chiming in. And we've got okay, if Amanugi, aka Abdul. We got Abdul in the house. Hey Abdul, peace all. Thank you, Abdul. And we've got Tanisha, peace and blessings. Thank you, sister, for joining us tonight or today. Pauline, peace. Thank you, Pauline. You're feeling all your energy just being here. Hey, first step is showing up. So Kirby Gordon, peace to room. Put peace to room. Yes, thank you, Kirby. And we've got David Jenkins. Doom along. Greetings, everyone, and the same to you. Love back to you as well. Shiva, Krishna, peace. Thank you, Shiva. And okay, this is a long one here. I think this is a notice. Self determination is the only true solution. Black Summer 2025. Tap in Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Justiceconference.live. Reparations. I think we should talk about reparations maybe next week because that's still
We
the
can talk
cry
about it. Yeah,
uh,
okay.
for many people. I mean, if you want to say something, yeah. What's your comment on that about referee? They're gonna. I guess this is a conference to discuss how it's going to happen. What's up with that? And
It's
then one
simple.
more, Valefi, peace. Thank you, Valefi. Go ahead.
It's simple. Talking about reparations. If they want to give me $1 million, I take it, but I ain't gonna wait on them. It's like that. So everybody can't do everything. Some people is pushing the reparation. Some people pushing spirituality. Some people pushing identity. Some people, our people, you got different. If you want to refer to different enlightened people, different intelligent people doing different things, but reparations is just not something that I'm just sitting around waiting on. It's a lot of people that's waiting on reparations, and they're putting a lot of energy into that, but they need to. It's okay, but make sure that your life is balanced. What is your diet looking like? You sitting there talking about reparations, you drinking Coca-Cola and eat donuts, and you waiting for
The
for the
chat.
system to give you a check. And it's
Yeah.
like you may not be around to get that check if you keep, because it's just we have an issue amongst our people. And I will say this: nobody is going to help us. Nobody has helped us, not on a large scale like, let's say, Nation of Islam or Malcolm X. It's not like that. There's been people saying stuff here and there, but we have to really put the helping realize that the helping hand is again is at the end of our own arm. Reparation is okay, but it's not something that I'm so focused on that I'm not doing anything else in my life. You see that? So if they don't give it to me, I'm straight. If they give it to me, I'm straight. Either way.
Now, who is they? This United States government is so corrupt. That's why we got so much chaos in Washington with Elon and Trump and the whole gang, because there's so much corruption. I don't know how you gonna get reparations out of all this. It'd be nice, They're talking about sending $5,000 checks to us because all the money they're saving from the corruption and the Social Security mess and all that. That'd be nice, like you said, but I ain't holding my breath either because we got to come out of victimhood. Black people are so used to and comfortable of being victims. And so this is just me, when I see people want reparations, they're acting to me like a victim because what has been done to you that you think you need reparations? My parents and grandparents weren't slaves, but this country tolerated, was built on slavery, but then so were a lot of other places. Their slavery did not just happen in the black race. There was slavery was everywhere. The Arabs had slaves, the European, Irish, there was slavery everywhere. If you look at history, so the
Well,
thing about reparations, be careful. Like you said, don't put too much energy in that because then you're coming out as a victim, and the energy level of being a victim is so low in your vibration to be healthy, wise, and prosperous, that if you put too much energy in fighting that I got to get this from the government, which is so corrupt. Oh my goodness, just put us in the on the stat on the lift us up as a people like we're doing today, and recognize how great we are that we don't even need reparations. That's what my thought is.
Well, other people may have done, different different groups of non-black race people, but they are not us. And even today, they'll let us know that they are not us. And you see what's going on
My
with
God.
the government. They have never treated us as them ever. They have shown kindness and courtesy and all this, things like that, and certain forms of morality with black people. But when have they had on a national level, you see what I'm saying, lift black people up? So it's like, even in nature, we're looking at cheetahs, we're looking at bears, we're looking at squirrels. All these different animals are sticking together. You see that? So I don't have anything to do with, let's say, the Irishmen and all these other people. I'm only concerned with my own people, and so when we talk about victimization, we're talking about like when we talk about the ancient ones. We were the ancient ones, reincarnated over and over and over again, and the people that went through what they went through then are us today. You see that? So that gene pool has been abused, traumatized, hung, and so forth and so on, and they're still being abused, traumatized, and hung in a different light. When we're dealing with, like I said before, systemic racism, regular racism, food poisoning. There's mental pollution right now. There's physical pollution right now with the environment. There's pollution with plastics. They're putting pollution inside of foods. They got pollution inside of foods that's damaging the DNA. They have engineered foods that only affect black people and doesn't affect them. You see, so putting got black people in areas on the side of town where you have lead pipes and things like that, and there's certain things that they are feeding the children on the black side of towns throughout the United States that actually causes ADHD, ADD, and many other things, even cancer. You see, so it's a effort on their part to, I think, in that way, to let us know, hey, you are and we are not. You know,
Okay, and then you have somebody like my father who was born in Jim Crow South, Louisiana, 1924. Went through all kinds of racism, and his mother and he took a train and went north because there was just too much hatred in Louisiana at that time. And he has so much favor. I'm talking about divine favor on his life, going to World War II once he got here, getting substances or food when he got to Chicago, him and his mother. And even though his mother died when he was 9 years old, or he had so much favor on his life. He lived to be 95 years old, no cancer, no major disease, because he had favor on his life. And he started, when you start recognizing the divine favor on your life, you're not looking for any help from people. You're just walking in that favor and that energy of love that's on your life for who, what, and your assignment. You have an assignment. You're gonna he taught kids how to play football, and he taught high school physical education, and then he had three daughters. He taught us how to take care of ourselves. So each one of us, if we can recognize the people in our lives who had favor and those who had to deal with some karma, which ain't fun, which ain't, it's not, it's a struggle, yes. But those who have favor, you learn how to walk in that favor and build that legacy. And you don't look for help. You just know that you have the favor and the strength to do what you need to do. And learning the lessons from those who don't have that favor. What's going on with them? Why are they having so many traumas in their life? Why are they struggling? There's a lesson in that for all of us to recognize those ancestors who didn't have the struggle and who had lots of favor. What happened there, and how can we repeat that and follow after them, versus, oh, look at what's happening to us now, we're so poor, we don't have this and that. Just recognizing the lessons and walking in the divine favor at every opportunity. And it's always there because we're special people. It's always there. Somebody. Good afternoon, everyone. Blessings from
I think
Sam.
that I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I think it's a balance. It's not so much of our people don't need to forget their history, because if you forget your history, you don't know where to go left or right for the future. History tells a story to us, and we learn from it. We learn who's who and who's and what you are and what you're not. So that's the problem with the youth today. They don't know anything about their history, not just slavery, genocide, but all the way back to our greatness, all the way back to the great Zimbabwe, the Benin Empire of West Africa, all the way through the Ethiopian Empire, even further back to Lemuria and Atlantis, even further back to our divine kingdoms, and even further back to just universal gods. And when you don't know who and what you are, you don't know how to move in life. You don't have a blueprint. You have to understand history to understand the blueprint. But this thing about when we talk about knowledge of self, when you learn about who you are, um, then, like I say, it is not so much of I wouldn't say it's victimization. Now, some people do play that role, and those are the ones that's got their hand out, want the handouts, hey, but they're not doing anything for themselves, anything for their people whatsoever. They just sit there and just want a handout, just a very, very base lifestyle. But when you got people who are trying to work and build their people up and reorganize their people according to the culture, you know, hey, I got respect for those people. If they got their hands out, but they're doing the work, okay. See that?
Well,
So
that's why we have to look at Obama. What did he do for the black community? The people
nothing.
who are criticizing him, he didn't do nothing. So
No.
Obama's agenda was build up the LGBTQ, and then he turns out he might be gay himself. So all of that information we have now on this first black president that we built up, and there are people still following him, and he's dropping more bombs on the other countries than any other president. So we learned a good lesson from that. That don't look at the color of the skin to put a president in there, because he could be just as corrupt and immoral as anybody, one with no color. And so now
Well,
we play. See, if you know the story of King David had his wife Bathsheba's husband killed on the battlefield and then married her. And then what happened? The creator anointed him as king. So people look at that story like, well, I don't know how could that happen? That's how the Most High works. We don't know what the plan is, but if he's anointing somebody who has somebody murdered, I see Trump that way. In a way, he's helping black folks become more independent. You take them out of the welfare, give Africa, take a USA out of Africa, help. He's doing all he can to help us get out there on our own. Trump was hanging out with hip hop rappers back in the day, so he's not the racist that people say he is. But a lot of the stuff he's doing, they don't understand because they don't play chess. The man is playing a chess game right now. He's moving around a lot of pawns, and why is he doing that? Oh my goodness! Let's protest, protest, protest. When just let's look at how it's going to help us re-educate our communities, take the federal government out of it for one, and let's build our communities up with African history and all the things that our children need that they didn't get because the federal government had too much control over the communities.
well, the children, the teenage children can be black just because they have black skin. Don't mean they're not sick. A lot of the youths out here are sick, but they're not. They're
Absolutely.
not. Huh? Yeah, but they're not.
Absolutely.
They still have the germ gene. But what I'm saying is the potential inside of them is to be is the pinnacle that they can reach with their potential is to be God. If you were a created person, your potential can never lead you to that point because you have a beginning. What they were saying, what they teach, that black people do not have a beginning. Just like you have black on black crime, you have teenage wars and shooting and killing each other. Who's responsible for that? That also goes back to slavery and genocide. We didn't have any issue whatsoever with killing as far as having genocide amongst us, rapes and murders and things like that. We didn't have any issues like that until they came over and did what they did, with whatever they did, with their culture, forcing us into this and that. They still doing that. It's still happening today. I know because I'm in the industry. I know what they do. I know the games they play. If you smile and act and walk and talk and eat like them, you cool. But as soon as you grab your own culture and start to live your life with your own sciences, then you're going to have issues. Obama, like the youth in the streets, he also has certain irrational mindset because of imbalanced characteristics in him within himself. Just because he puts a suit on and he got money and he's president of the United States and so forth, so it doesn't mean that he doesn't have any issues with his characteristics. If we go and trace him back to his soul essence, could we say that he's a god of the universe? Yeah. We could say that he's a part of the Most High, but is he in a sleep-like state? Yes, he is in a sleep-like state. So black on black crime can only happen when a person is not consciously connected to the divine inside. If that conscious connection is disrupted, you will take on the influence of your environment, and the influences in this society are very, very strong. So we can't really judge our people by what we see in their sick state, just like you can't judge an old man or old woman who have Alzheimer's disease walking around naked and stuff and don't know who and what they are. It's the same thing that's happening to black people the world over. So Obama, on that level, we can actually say, yeah, LGBTQ or whatever, gay power, whatever, he had a play into that. Yeah. Is he in his right state of mind? No, he's not. No, he's not in his right state of mind.
Yeah, and that's like you could go to Diddy and the whole hip hop community, how it got corrupted by certain Zionists. Let's just say that, put that out. Khazari, I call them Khazarian mafia Zionists. They have their hand in so much corruption and influence in the black community. How do we get all these guns in the black community? How? CIA, try that. And all the plans that they made to bring down the black community that we fell for. Get the guns, kill each other. That's what the problem is right now in Chicago, for instance. We can't see the problem with picking up gun and killing your brother. What's wrong with that? So there's so much disease, spiritual, mental, physical, in our communities, that the only way we're going to heal from that is people suffering and dying and then maybe waking up. But that's why we're here every week, is to help people wake up, because there's so much deception. That what happened in Africa with USAID, CIA, what happened, we finding out about President Kennedy. It wasn't about what we were told happened. There was a whole nother story coming out now that these files are having all again. Zionist mafia keeps coming up, but they're going to try and hide that. But some of us already know what's going on. And we just have to be so conscious to recognize the energy. Like we go back to the physics of it all. It's all about energy. The astronomy, the cosmic order, the microcosm is energy. Let's just pay attention to people's energy, and whether there's love, truth coming out of people versus the skin color or whatever. And like we're saying, Chief saying here, there's so much history from our ancestors in Africa that hasn't been taught. Why? Federal government had too much control over our education. So now's the time. This is the day. In fact, this is the first day of a Mayan calendar, 260-day calendar. So this is like a new day starting today for us to wake up and start building something new, something greater even than what our ancestors had, because we have it in us. Like you said, the gene is in us. We just got to wake up to it, use it, and recognize, discern who's running the evil show over there, and just leave them alone. Go stay away from them and do our powerful sovereign thing here.
Yep, that's about right. We just got to have the culture. It's the education. That's the issue. Our people and our families, they no longer have a way of life. They don't have a culture. And without that, a culture circumscribes biology, physics, astronomy, mathematics, everything. You see that? But not
Yeah,
mathematics, biology, astronomy, physics as they teach in school. Our education is totally different. It's totally different.
absolutely.
We have a direct relationship with it spiritually, mentally, and physically. And
Yeah,
the way they teach it is all incorrect. You see that? So
yeah,
that is the type of education that they have to have. And once you implement that, then you will see a change in the mindset of the youth. You see,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
going to take.
We got too many people like I'm gonna have to just say Beyonce for one, blonde hair charging over $3,000 to see her perform. And do you know there's some black people out there going into debt for this show? One
Oh
that's like
yeah,
what 2 or 3 hours, and you're gonna spend three really and blonde hair flying everywhere, and you go out and I got to get me a blonde wig now, and I got to get
but
my
you know
nails.
what I look. But you know what I look at when I see that. I pay attention not just to Beyonce. I pay attention to what kind of mindset would do something like that. And when I look at
Yes,
people that's
yes,
screaming over, I see the poorness and the deterioration in the mentality
yes,
of
yes.
somebody like that, you know. So they are part of they're victims of programming, you know. And because Beyonce has no power, she has nothing whatsoever to offer our people. Nothing.
Absolutely. And so let us take a few minutes to meditate and let's just send love to people like Beyonce who are out there deceiving and confused. And anybody you can think of, let's just send love and truth and wisdom their way. And if you have any relatives who are needing healing, let's send love to them as well as we let's see, I gotta stop. As we listen to this ancestral music sound, uh, and bring in the energy of love to our communities all around us, because we got to have healthy communities all around us, but especially there's something missing in the black. Let's just take a minute to close your eyes and focus on the people in our consciousness or conscious who need love, truth, and wisdom, and let's just send it to them in this energy we're playing. We want to thank you all for bringing your collective energy of love. You are the physics tonight, today. You are the astronomy, the anatomy, the human energy that is making a difference in this world, in our community. Thank you so much for joining us. And you have any final words, Chief?
Um, Not really. Just
Oh,
apply what you know.
absolutely. Please apply what you know, apply what we're sharing. And we are changing this country and this world by our love energy and our willingness to come show up. That's what it's all about. Just show up. So to all my yogi friends out there, namaste, sat nam. Mwah. Love you all. Have a great evening.